Hello, National Fix League, and welcome back. This time to the Round 1 recap and the Round 2 playoff preview. I'm your host, Eric Zaleski, alongside Austin Revito, who is a little bit on edge today. He's over there. He's spooning Pre into his mouth. He's getting ravaged by GNC. They're not a sponsor.
Not at all.
Mr. Hyde.
It's not as bad as you said it was. It really there is like a legitimate spice that comes back up.
It's not good. I know that stuff. I mean, that's my lowest rated pre-workout.
Is it good? Does it work?
I mean, you tell me. I can't get over the taste and the burn. And the burn's only going to continue to increase as you drink that. So something to keep in mind.
That's why we have this guy, just in case, as backup.
Another plug for our Starbucks.
Oh
coffee.
Yeah, sorry, Starbucks and who else is sponsored? I think we have to throw out a year-long sponsor to Apple.
Yeah,
all of the devices down here are Apple that we use.
That is kind. I even got the Apple Charger.
Yeah, Apple
right
Charger.
Now.
Not even. Yeah. So Apple. So here we are. We're week? What is it? Week? Well, that was
technically
14,
week 14 going to week 15.
1. We're a little late with these podcasts, but schedules only allow us to do what we can. But I think the anticipation builds.
It definitely does, and I get texts like, when's the podcast coming out? And
I can only assume that's Robbie Wright texting.
Robbie Wright actually did text me this morning, as a matter of fact, and asked when, because he gets a kick out of the hockey podcast, and I know he's a little bit more anxious for the football podcast, considering he's down to the Final Four. And so we're down to 4 teams. 3 teams of the Final Four will be in the money, in the green. So it's starting to get intense now. This is the time of year when things really start ramping up. And we had a couple of big games in round 1, so we are going to recap those games and then preview the final 4, which are the 2 games in round number 2. So let's jump right into it here, and let's start off with the game that wasn't so close. This was Team Tone versus 3 Jacksons short of the Jacksons 5. The Jacksons getting the victory by a final score of 96.7 to 73.8. This was your upset pick. And
yeah.
And you went against the grain a little bit. I did play it safe with the 2 favorites. But you did call one thing correct in this game, if I'm not mistaken, as I look over
Martellus Bennett.
That is... Oh, no, you know what? That's the other game.
That was the other game.
That was the other game.
There wasn't much that went right for Tone.
Yeah, and it's kind of unfortunate because Tone's a team that, he kind of was streaking towards the end of the season. It was one of the hotter teams coming down the stretch, but really just a lackluster performance here from Team Tone. Going up and down his roster, Roethlisberger was really the only guy that got something done with 27.9 points at Cincinnati and a big win for the Steelers.
Yeah, no one else on his roster had more than like 8 points.
Yeah, Lamar Miller 8.9, Mark Ingram 3.6, Dez Bryant 8.2, Mohamed Sanu 1.6, Delaney Walker 2.7, Emmanuel Sanders 6.9. The Bills D got him 6, and Phil Dawson got him 8. He did leave a little bit on his bench down there, but it still wouldn't have been enough. He had Cam Newton on the bench, who is currently hospitalized. Did you see the picture of him? Right after the accident, somebody snapped a photo of him. He just has this big grin on his face. That smile literally does not go away.
I did. Yeah, he has fractured transverse processes, so he's screwed for a couple weeks.
Well, they said that's, and I'm sure that you're probably going to have some counter to this, but they said it was a similar injury to what Romo had earlier this year.
Yeah. You shouldn't be playing, but whatever. These guys will do whatever. They're stupid. I think that's I think part of the Wonderlic is if they don't, that's the thing. If Fitzy, who graduated from Harvard, if they told him hey, this is an injury that if you play it might not get better, but you could make it worse, but you could still play, Fitzy would be all in on being I'm not playing, I'm out, I'm smart, I'm out. You tell Scram Newton that, and he scrams yeah, okay, I guess I'll play. I don't know anything else. I just want to put on my big headphones and walk around like a degenerate. So
at the same time, it's got to be hard because believe it or not, they're still in the midst of a division race. With what do they have? 4 wins.
I don't know. You tell me.
I think they have. I think they are 4-8-1, if I'm not mistaken, this year. So and they're still.
Every time they show that that they show that their division on this infographics or whatever, it's just oh god.
Yeah. So just not a real strong week from Team Tone and
Tony
Jackson's. The big dogs came through. Andrew Luck had 23.5, which is pretty amazing because if you were watching that game, it really seemed like he wasn't doing anything all day. I know he snuck in for a rushing touchdown and he threw for a touchdown late in the game. I think he ended with 3 total touchdowns for 23.5 points. But a game that you were kind of thinking, oh, here's Luck finally regressing a little bit. Granted, it's week, whatever it is, 13 in the NFL, I think, or their 13th game, and but he still gets the job done. That's what the big horses do. He came to play, put up a nice number. Also, noteworthy performance out of Steven Jackson, who had 50 yards and a touchdown. I mean, that's the difference.
That's your best case scenario for Steven Jackson.
Yeah, and he ended up, we talked about how both teams lack a little bit at the running back position. Steven Jackson was able to propel the Jacksons in that position. Calvin Johnson against Tampa, we knew he was going to blow up. He gets 21.8, a monstrous game out of him. Brandon Marshall, the wide receiver for the Jacksons, actually had a good game going, had 6.1, but got an injury. I think he's out for the season. I see that he's on IR here, so Jacksons are going to have to look elsewhere.
Good. I'm glad.
For next week. And it's been that kind of year for Brandon Marshall, unfortunately. Rob Gronkowski.
I don't know why I just don't look at my own screen.
Yeah. What else can you say about Robert Gronkowski? He is a stud. 14.7 out of him this week. Did you see Gronk throw the 69, tape the 69 on the back of the practice jersey?
He's a cockbag. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
I thought it was great. I don't think he's a cockbag at all. I think he's hysterical, mainly because he's just like the most innocent guy. Like he's not intelligent enough to hate. Like he's happy Gronk.
I don't know. I've always had issues, and I always will have problems with professional athletes who can't act like a sane, not even a sane person, but have an iota of intellect ever. They walk around acting like rappers, thinking they're rappers, beating their wives, taping 69 on them. Have some, I don't even know, the word is not even class. It's just act like an adult. Sort of. I mean, it's I don't know. No one else in their right mind can go to their daily job and type 69 on their back and just be like, this is hysterical. And then it blows up on the internet. Oh, this is so funny. Well, it's but then when you give that person FaceTime, so ESPN's oh, Gronk, yeah, and they actually make fun of him. They're he actually is stupid. But it's why don't you do things on people who are, who go out of their way for children. I'm not a big fan of Richard Sherman, but that guy donates a shitload of time to charities and gives money away. Do specials on that, not on when Kenny Mayne or whoever does that dumb fucking thing every Sunday morning on that countdown where he tries to be way too hipster, oh man, I'm so cool, look how awkward I can be around professional athletes who do stupid shit. Yeah. It's why don't you do a story on people who are doing good to try to make the face of the league look better, not some asshole who tapes 69 on his back, fucks porn stars, posts it on Twitters and Facebooks and Instagrams. I don't if that's the message that the league wants to support and send to people, then I don't care that these guys are hitting their wives. And doing this shit. Sorry, I feel badly for her or the wife, but it's at the same time, it's if you're going to continue to employ these people and not only employ them, but publicize and market the league towards assholes like this, then I'm glad that you have to deal with the shittiness of people hitting women and DUIs and domestic violences
all right.
and just carrying guns and shit. You deserve that, Goodell. Die in a fucking fire.
All right, Gronk.
I hate Gronk. I hate him. He's an asshole.
Unfortunately, he taped 69 on the back of his shirt. I mean, I guess it's well, Ravito, and I've said this about, I've told you this right to your face. Ravito might be the most inconsistent person that I know. Today he's on his high horse for some reason. He's worried about the amount of caffeine in the drink, and now he's blasting all
Well,
these
I knew
players.
I had this. I knew this has this also has 260 milligrams of caffeine. So
but this is the same guy the other day that took 4 scoops of Shatter.
That is
before
true,
workout,
but
where they say max out at 1.
2. You're allowed to. That actually says take 2 off
right.
the jump.
Well, you still doubled your dose, but he's on his high horse today, and now he's like trying to correct the NFL for some reason. I thought it was just it's funny. Gronk's funny because he doesn't know any better. He legitimately doesn't know any better.
I think that's a scam.
I think that Gronk is significantly different than what you see some like the black guys do, and I don't think that those are really comparable. But we're digressing here. Torrey Smith had a 0 for the Jacksons here, and did he play? Dealing with a knee sprain. I don't know. I'm not sure if you played.
Their wide receivers suck now. Look.
Baltimore's.
Well, no,
Jackson's.
out. Probably maybe not playing. Deshaun Jackson's got something going on. They're gonna have to play Johnny Brown.
Your boy.
Like literally, they don't have anybody else they can start.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see what they decide to do there, because injuries have struck the wide receiver position of the Jacksons. Eagles D ending with 3, and your boy Stephen Gostkowski ending with 11, for a total of 96.7. So the Jacksons will advance to the second round of the playoffs.
Who do they play? We Are the Cause.
No, they play
Cologne.
Yes. And actually, kind of an interesting little side note caveat, the Jacksons actually owe the league some money. We won't get into the specific details, but there's basically been radio silence from the Jacksons over there. You wonder if their kind of train of thought and their theory is maybe if they win the league, they can use those winnings to pay the league back for what they owe.
It's a kickback.
Yeah, so I don't know, maybe if they're just kind of holding out hope and they'll respond then. I'm not sure what the situation is, but at the end of the day, kind of like Gronk, I think they mean well. But moving forward here, Hit on 16 versus It's Only Smells.
See what happens when you change your name? You almost lose. That was close.
This was a close game, and I actually got a text, I believe it was Sunday evening, where at one point Robbie had sent me the projected totals were within 0.1 of a point. And let's just jump. I mean, I'll tell you right now, if I were to tell Robbie Wright before the start of the week that you were going to get 1.5 out of Josh Gordon, 1.1 out of Demaryius Thomas, and 2.5 out of Jimmy Graham, Robbie would have just not even watched the games this week. He would have said, I lost.
He would have shit his pants. Yeah.
I mean, hard to believe that you get that little production out of those 3 big guys and you still win the week. Still put up 95 points, and that's still a nice week. I mean, I guess we'll let you go on another rant here. But you got to tip your hat to C.J. Anderson. Had 3 touchdowns this week for Denver, running back against Buffalo.
Yeah.
He has been a star. Of course, there's been a lot of notoriety. There was a trade offer late in the season, right before the end of the trade deadline, that involved you sending Rodgers to Hit on 16, and Hit on 16 sending C.J. Anderson and a package deal back to you. I'll turn this over to you.
So I would have got C.J. Anderson, Jay Cutler, and Anquan Bolden. And I would be in the – I did the numbers, the math. I was pretty bored between cases. And I would be right now lining up against Team Cologne in the semifinals if that trade went through. The week that I would have got Anquan Bolden was week 12. He had 19.7 points.
Yeah, because you needed to win a couple games to get in.
In a row to get in.
You would have won those games.
Look at the numbers in week 12. I would have, just out of Anquan Bolden and C.J. Anderson, I would have had over 40 points, 44 points. Jay Cutler, I don't think he had a good week that week. No, 7.2, but it didn't matter because I needed, I think Rodgers only had like 13 or 14 more points than that. So the differential was vast. And I was also getting it was Anquan Bolden. He also offered the tight end guy. Who's a tight other? He had another tight end. You must have dropped him.
I think he had Vernon Davis.
Oh yeah, and I didn't want him. But so yeah, I would be in the second round of the playoffs right now, and I'd be the underdog story, like in Caddyshack. Yeah. Everyone would be rooting for me.
It's really unfortunate.
It's a bunch of shit-eating cockbags just decided to not do the trade. And the funny thing was, if I did that trade, Robbie would have lost. Robbie would not be. Yeah, he would be out of the playoffs, and I don't. Yeah, so it would have. It's interesting because everybody was saying, "Oh, Robbie's team will get too good if he gets Rodgers." Well, He would be out of the playoffs. He would have lost to Smells.
But to everybody's defense, and probably, I mean, I think you would probably tend to agree. I don't think anybody saw this coming out of C.J. Anderson. Sure, you knew he was going to get his touches, and maybe he gets a touchdown a week, but 3 touchdowns. I mean, this guy.
The thing is,
he's been setting the world on fire.
Yeah, but look at what I had Ronnie Hillman. Look at what Ronnie Hillman was doing.
Yeah.
I mean, he was putting up. With that, what's it called? The Denver running backs. I mean, it's a plug and play. I mean, Ronnie Hillman was having 20, 11, 22, 13, 18. 2.2 injury.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was just kind of you plug the next one in,
yeah.
and Peyton Manning doesn't really lose a step. So yeah, that actually really sucked.
Yeah.
It's all. I wish I didn't do the math, but I did. Now I'm getting like a runny nose from this stuff. The burns now. It's setting in a little bit.
It's gonna come. It's gonna come heavy.
It's really odd. Odd actually.
Well, you mentioned Jay Cutler was a part of that trade. He had 26.5 this week. A lot of garbage time points on Thursday night against Dallas.
Yeah, I can only picture Robbie on like that last drive when he threw the interception. It's like you'd rather you take the ink there.
Right. Oh yeah. No
anything
doubt.
But that pick.
Yeah.
And that almost came down.
Yeah, I mean, he wins by 5. What's an interception? 2 points?
So 97 he would have had instead of 95.
Yeah, and I believe that was Cutler's last throw of the game.
That was the last play of the game, yeah.
So, I don't know, kind of interesting there. Marshawn Lynch continues his consistency with 15.3.
He had a bad week recently, didn't he? Like in his, no, not even really. 8.2, yeah. So he must have got in.
How about that week? 4 touchdowns in week, was that week 10?
Yeah, and that was the week that I beat Robbie.
Wow. Oh, yeah, that's right, because we said he wasted one of the... Yeah. The second time he's wasted an all-world performance as far as fantasy goes.
What is that picture? Come on. I mean, it's just...
Don't they take new, like, team pictures at the start of every season? Because they've just left that one up. That's been his picture for, like, 3 or 4 years.
Really?
Yeah.
He looks, like, unbelievably... yeah, he doesn't look good. But I guess we've talked about the 2 big games.
Well, and let's just run over to Smells lineup here just to see.
Let's give Smells a round of that team.
It was. It was a great run. It was a great run for
At
Smells.
one point, they were like just the bottom of the barrel. I mean, if you look at their schedule, they
started off the year.
stunk. They were
0-2 to start the year.
They were 2-3, and then they just went nuts.
Yeah.
Although they lost the last 2 weeks and still made the playoffs. Oh no! Well, they lost.
Yeah.
So they hung
I think
in
at
there.
2-3 they were pretty low, and we really didn't see them kind of up and coming until it was like a week before the playoffs. And we're like, oh, Smells might be in.
Right. They started racking up some points,
and really, if you look at their lineup, not star-studded at all. So they really did well with what they had. We did mention that you predicted Martellus Bennett would outscore Jimmy Graham. He did. He got in the end zone. Bennett with 14.4. We both took Isaiah Crowell over Anquan Bolden for the flex, and that came to pass as well as Crowell got in the end zone and 11.4 for Smells, but they come up 4.9 points short, and they will be eliminated from the National Fix League.
Well, I know you were watching that game Sunday night.
Yes.
Matthews got like 6 carries early and was like, he had a few runs that he broke for like, 9 to 12, 13 yards. And I'm sitting here thinking all he had to do was get in the end zone. And it's like, but then it's like once the second they got behind, it was like,
then they had to start throwing.
Yeah, that was it.
And here, I'm glad you brought this up. I am embarrassed.
Is this your story?
No.
Oh.
And we'll say I got a story coming later. But I just wanted to say that I'm embarrassed as a fantasy owner to say that, and this actually is part of my story later, but I'll just start here. I'm embarrassed to say that Phillip Rivers is my quarterback. I just realized the other night how little I've actually watched him play throughout his career. I've only watched a couple of Chargers games because they're usually on like at 4 o'clock and they're playing the Rams or something. I don't want to watch
At that point, you're napping or you have way better things to do on a Sunday.
And so I have not watched him play. He is terrible.
Oh, he's not.
No, like he does not throw the ball down the field.
He's like throws.
That's what we just said. Too. It's like his arm is stapled at his side, and he can only do this.
That's why the Steelers didn't pick him.
I mean, he's so bad. It was maddening to watch the game on Sunday night. Maddening. He is like, I can't even believe that I traded Tom Brady for this guy.
The best
of the day, because his numbers are somehow good.
Yeah,
they were somehow good. I don't know how they were good.
look, well, yeah. I mean, the thing is, it was hysterical when people at the beginning of the year were saying like Phillip Rivers for MVP. It was like, have you watched this guy play 16 games in a season? Because inevitably,
Apparently not.
this only works for so long. When you're like it, like he has to like dip his shoulder and like go like that.
Like, is there something wrong with him?
I mean,
Is he okay?
I mean, have you seen him like explode on the sidelines? He's like he's remedial.
Yeah.
I mean, his IQ is like.
Well, the best was him and Brady. Like they were going back with like the Tourette's freakouts on Sunday night. Just like every time you look over to them, they're like dropping the F-bomb. Just you always see the head snap back.
Like
and it's just like they would literally. There was like a war going back and forth.
Maybe if they would like take a breath, they would like realize like, okay, like I'm getting paid $80 billion to play a fucking game. Like,
yeah, I mean, 2 intense individuals.
Darn, I threw a pick. You know, like, but yeah, so.
But anyway, yeah, he stinks. I mean, I was beside myself watching this guy play. I couldn't even, because I was complaining about him all night, and Marissa, who was with me,
oh no,
was like,
did she say anything about the throw?
Well, she was just like, well, why did you trade for him in fantasy? And I was like, he somehow put up good numbers.
He did.
And I couldn't explain why. I was like, I don't know. I've really never watched him play. It hit me.
And at that point, Tom Brady stunk.
He was terrible. Yeah. And like they literally have reversed roles since then. But anyways,
give me some of that water.
Let's jump into the matchups for round number 2, and let's start off with Jackson's versus Team Cologne. Of course, Cologne coming off the bye. The ESPN has him projected as a 25.2 favorite in this contest.
22.5 favorite.
25.2 favorite.
Oh well, that's if you look. I think I'm going to assume that.
No.
Oh, God. This is a problem. Jackson's. He's not... Look at that. Iffy.
Well, let's explain to the people what we're looking at here. So
Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah. So we have already mentioned the Jacksons might be in a little bit of trouble as far as wide receivers go, and they've already plugged in Deshaun Jackson, who's listed as questionable, so we don't know if he's going to be a go this Sunday against the New York Giants. If not, they're going to have to look elsewhere, but they're certainly hoping so. And that's a guy where if he does play, he's that big play threat.
Right.
He catches one ball for 70 yards and a touchdown, and you're set for the week.
So I mean, that's it.
But let's go exactly how we did last week. Let's go back and forth, compare each position. Let's start off.
We'll say that this is the lineup that what they have now is what we're going to go with?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine. So let's start off with the quarterbacks. You have Andrew Luck for the Jacksons versus Tom Brady for Team Cologne. You have Luck going against Houston, Brady going against Miami.
I saw some statistic that Andrew Luck, I don't think it's that he's never lost to Houston, but I'm pretty sure it's like every time he plays Houston, he just goes like bananas. The last time he played them, he was 370 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown, 24.6 points. So like yeah.
I mean, well, I'll tell you this. Tom Brady, like historically, doesn't it feel like he's always had a hard time against Miami? Like the Dolphins always seem to beat the Patriots.
I thought that was like, and they always go north and beat the Patriots, and that's what's. Oh, there comes that spice.
Yeah,
it's like actually like it's in my teeth.
So I'm gonna take Andrew Luck there. I think, and the numbers would probably tend to agree.
Yeah, I would go absolutely Luck.
Okay. Now onto the running backs. This is no contest. We're going to spend very little time on this.
Lacy and Bell.
Now, Lacy listed as questionable.
Yeah, he got an ankle, I think. Is it? Oh, was I right? Oh, hip. It's a hip.
So, assuming he's good to go, we're taking Team Cologne's running backs of Edward Lacy, Le'Veon Bell over the Jackson's running backs of Steven Jackson and Denard Robinson. That's really what separates these two teams, right there. That's the position.
Yeah,
that's what makes Team Cologne so good. Lacy and Bell, they've been very consistent this year, especially Eddie Lacy, a guy that's really been coming on. Take a look at what he did last week. 22.6. He had 73 yards and a touchdown, and that doesn't even include his receiving yards. He has been very good.
He started off slow. People were down on him, but I don't know.
I mean, I think that's probably where this week is won. But jumping down to the wide receivers now, Calvin Johnson and a questionable Deshaun Jackson versus Randall Cobb and DeAndre Hopkins. This is tough. Now, we got Calvin Johnson going against Minnesota. He should have another field day. And you have Randall Cobb going against Buffalo. Buffalo's been kind of a surprisingly stingy team this year.
They have a good defense, yeah.
But you got Aaron Rodgers clicking. I reached out to you this week just to say, Aaron Rodgers.
It was actually a nice message. It made me realize how lucky I am to watch
Aaron
this
Rodgers
guy play.
here's Aaron Rodgers, and here's the rest of the quarterbacks in the NFL, and I include Peyton Manning.
It's not even
here,
close, actually.
And anybody else you'd put in that category. Aaron Rodgers is just so good. Just when you I sent that to you after I watched him. It was a touchdown late in the first half.
Yeah, the one to Jordy Nelson.
Yeah, and it looked like he was going to be sacked for a loss. He dodges out.
He just did that quick little he just turned aside, and the guy was flying by him. Yeah.
Bought another 5 seconds and throws it to Jordy Nelson. I was just like, he makes it look so easy. And if Vegas didn't have their say in it, he could have put up 80 points against the Falcons. The other night, he's really good. Jordy Nelson, I think, clearly a little bit better than Randall Cobb on the totem pole, but if you have a Green Bay wide receiver, you're in good spirits. So I guess the real question kind of is, it's DeSean Jackson versus DeAndre Hopkins here.
He looks like a thug.
Yeah, we actually went over this last week. That's tough. DeAndre Hopkins only had 4 receptions for 49 yards last week.
Is he another hit or miss guy? Like he's got a long pass sort of thing?
Yeah, it would appear that way looking at his statistics. DeSean Jackson, as we said, is similar. That's tough. That's really tough.
That is tough, yeah.
You got Hopkins going against Indy, and the big question is Jackson going to play? Obviously,
if he doesn't play, you have nothing on the bench.
Yeah, you're going with your. It doesn't even look like they have that John Brown. It looks like they went out and picked up another running back.
Kerwin Williams? Who is that?
Well, he had 19 for 100 yards.
All right.
Playing for the Cardinals. So
he didn't have a carry the entire year.
No. So I wonder, did Ellington get hurt?
Oh, yeah, he's on IR.
Okay.
I heard that on the fantasy radio. Yeah,
is.
Okay. That all makes sense now. Shows how much those West Coast teams, I couldn't give a shit about any of them.
It's just hard.
It's hard to care because you're stemmed up. You have the lift before those 1 o'clock games. You're on red zone. There's so much going on. You can't help yourself but looking at you're rooting for teams. You're rooting for players, and then those 4 o'clock games.
Now I do have an interesting point before we move on to tight ends, and I'm looking down at the Jackson's flex. They have a guy by the name of Charles Johnson in there for the Minnesota Vikings. A black guy with blonde hair.
Just blonde from
Yeah, it doesn't really mix well.
It looks terrible, actually.
I've never heard of this guy. He's coming off a 4-reception, 103-yard week with a touchdown, 16.3 fantasy points.
He was a guy. Now, did you by chance catch the highlights, the lowlights of Jets at Vikes? He was the guy who caught the screen pass in overtime and ran 83 yards.
Okay, I saw the touchdown that one.
So 83 or 87 yards of his total was on one play.
And he only really had one other big week this year, and that was the only other time that he got in the end zone.
It was against Green Bay 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
3 weeks
and
ago now.
You can't really like that there, but that might be a guy that the Jacksons opt to start over Jackson if Jackson can't go, and then they can bring up this Kerwin Williams guy and put him in the flex. So that might be something that they have to end up doing if Jackson's out. And then I guess we'll just compare the Cologne flex, who's Rashard Jennings, good old Rosh, who's been in and out of the lineup throughout the course of the year. He's coming off he only got the ball twice for 5 yards last game. You can't feel good about him.
Rosh.
I actually like Johnson over Rosh in that scenario.
I almost think if you're
that's an ugly.
If I'm Cologne, I put Starks in there instead of Rosh.
I agree. I think Starks has a better chance to get in the end zone.
He did this past week. You're looking at one of those situations where it's like best case scenario for Starks. Same thing happens that happened last week.
Right.
Packers get up big. Or they get up, they run the ball. Lacey gets his carries. He has the hip already, so it's kind of like you're fading your own bet there by playing them both at the same time.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
He also has Andre Williams on his bench, who had 24 carries for 131 yards and a touchdown. You wonder if Cologne's even looked at his lineup this week. Maybe Williams gets the nod over Jennings. That certainly would make a lot more sense.
What are these predictions? He also looks kind of funny in his picture, Andre Williams. Guy went for 137 yards on 24 touches, and he's predicted 3.6 points this week. Then you look at, Denard Robinson, who sucked last week. He's got 5, these predictions. These predictions suck.
We could literally have a show of us just rambling on. Next year, when we do the podcast, we're going to do, the most outlandish projection for each week. like kind of predict like what they're way off on this.
Okay.
And then like go back and recap. We should do that. I've been thinking about that all year because these are out of control. Jumping back up to the tight ends here real quick, as this is getting a little bit long. We were actually meeting Samuel Mendelson at the gym, and we're gonna be late. If you actually wouldn't mind sending him a text just saying like
I did. He just texted me saying that Brody's playing in the game tonight. I said no. The roster's already said he's not playing, and then he said he's absolutely playing, and I responded with no. I don't want Brody at the game tonight.
Well, we already have 10, so we'll.
Right.
But David will cancel. Text Mendelson, tell him that we'll be there at 12:45 now.
We will. Well, I mean, if we okay.
Go ahead.
We will.
So the tight end matchup is the Jacksons, Rob Gronkowski versus Gregory Olsen. For Team Cologne, Olsen coming off a 10-reception, 72-yard touchdown performance. So actually not bad, but you can't really pick anybody over Gronk right now at that position. Gronk has just been too good. And looking over his numbers here,
Wow.
I mean, even in weeks where he's not scoring touchdowns, for example, week 13 at Green Bay, he still had 9.8. He's too good. I can't pick against Gronk.
Who would it be the other tight end? Olsen.
Yeah. And Olsen's been pretty good.
I was gonna say
he's going against Tampa Bay. That's a favorable matchup.
It's hilarious because like they have to play to win. It's hysterical that team is still
true.
has like.
And then you wonder who's going to be the quarterback. I know Derek Anderson's a backup there in Carolina. And they actually were saying today on ESPN that they think Anderson is technically a better accuracy passer than Cam Newton. Cam Newton is much more of an all-around threat. So
it's a white versus a black. The whites are always more accurate. That's not even racist.
That's true.
That's proven fact. I mean,
that's true.
It's true. Yeah.
And then to round out the rosters here, Jackson's with the Eagles D against Dallas, and they got Steven Gostkowski as the kicker. Team Cologne has the Ravens D versus Jacksonville, very favorable.
Yeah.
And Caleb Sturgis.
Dyslexia. Dyslexia over
pre-workout.
There it is. He's adding extra letters. Yeah.
I am. I mean, that's kind of a toss-up there. Certainly, you're going to take the D going against Jacksonville.
And
I guess Gostkowski's kind of been the man. We've been betting against him all year and getting smacked.
Well, he did have 2 at Green Bay,
but coming off an 11-point week, and Miami's a stingy defense, so he might get some field goals. I'm going to take Gostkowski there. Kicker.
Although he missed that real ugly one. He missed a real ugly one at Green Bay. It wasn't even close. I don't know.
Which affected the spread.
Yeah, sure.
That's probably why.
Then they bitched about like the footing was bad. And in my head, I'm like, well, they needed an excuse. Like this guy hasn't missed all year, and he kicks one. In this little microphone in his head, they're saying like, okay. That's the thing. The NFL tries to pretend that only the guys with the green helmet have microphones. Everyone has a microphone in their head, and they're like, "Okay, you need to miss this, Gostkowski."
Yeah,
and he's running,
or we got your dog hostage,
right?
And your wife's going next. So.
Well, that's what those visors are. Those visors are just like TVs, So anyone who has a visor, they're like, "We have your wife," make a play, And so he kicks it, and that thing it missed right off the boot, and they're like, "Could you have missed it a little bit better?"
And then my dad was actually who had bet the Packers, was parading around the house.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. He was pumped.
Oh, is that his bet with the guy down the street?
Yeah.
They bet. Then who did he get first pick with that or second pick?
I'm trying to remember here. They played the Patriots. I don't know. They bet a few games that day. I can never keep track. He was actually just in Vegas.
Is he back?
He is back.
He's back.
And he took the Patriots on Sunday night and the Packers on Monday night. Classic public. Won one, lost one, so he lost a little bit of juice, but had some fun out there doing that. So just for predictions here, I'm going to take Team Cologne. I'm taking Team Cologne for the sole fact that their running backs are just significantly better. I'm betting on Eddie Lacy. I'm betting on Le'Veon Bell over Steven Jackson and Denard Robinson. Certainly, the Jacksons have a chance here, and we talked about their 3 big guys last week, and Andrew Luck, Calvin Johnson, and Rob Gronkowski. If they can all kind of perform up to the level that they're capable of, they certainly have a chance to win this game. So I'm not going to count them out, but I'm going to predict that Cologne wins.
I think Cologne actually runs away with this. No pun intended for his running backs, but I think he runs away with it.
Yeah, pun can be intended because that plays.
I initially meant for it not to be intended, but
that's fair.
I guess technically it should have been intended.
Now jumping to the second matchup of the week, and we've kind of taking this a little bit longer than usual, but we're having fun.
We're all stimmed up. Now we're both feeling it. You're
Yeah.
turning red. I can feel my ears
You
going.
feel my legs kind of
Mine are
shaking under the
sort of
table.
like, let's go. Yeah.
Down with the Cause now without a team picture, interestingly enough. They had that one picture of the ESPN analyst all year. I don't know if that's just that's been taken down.
The guy,
Cornball brother.
Cornball brother.
Um,
I must say that's a top 5 moment in fantasy this year when he showed us that video, when Chad showed us what
Yes.
like that meant, and like, is he a brother or is he a cornball brother?
Classic.
It was just the look on the host's face, like, you can't say that, but like, what do you mean? Like, she had to have the follow-up question, like, what's a cornball brother? Like, almost like, you know what? Just like pretend like you fainted, you know, like fall off the chair. Like, dude, don't answer that. But yeah.
So starting with the quarterbacks here.
Let's just go straight down.
Well, Hit on 16 has Joe Flacco in. He actually texted me this morning saying that's not final. You probably do start Joe Flacco against Jacksonville, but he also has Jay Cutler, who he started last week going against New Orleans.
Well, you
New
saw that New
Orleans-
Orleans game last week,
Yeah.
and this is a primetime game this week.
Yeah, that's tough.
Heyo.
But you're probably, I mean, I'd start Joe Flacco against Jacksonville. For
Actually,
sure.
I think I'd start Sanchez against Dallas Sunday night. That game
He's
has
3 QBs.
That game
Wow.
has overwritten all over it. That game has the Eagles lost at home last week. Yeah, Dallas won
Yeah.
outright. Like that game just has a Sunday and Monday night games. Those games they throw all the cards. The cards are off the table.
Well,
for
that's for that reason alone is probably why I'm not going to start Sanchez, because you had the Eagles beat up on Dallas on Thanksgiving Day. So now everybody thinks that's going to happen again, and it probably won't.
I think my start would be, I think I would start Sanchez. I hate Flacco. I wouldn't, if I had to put my fantasy season on Joe Flacco, I'd be really nervous.
I think a lot of people would say the same thing about Mark Sanchez, though, and Jay Cutler. Robbie Wright has put himself in this position by having Joe Flacco, Jay Cutler, and Mark Sanchez in his lineup, so you can't feel bad for him here. I'm going to start Flacco because, 1, they still have a chance to win the division, and 2, they're going against Jacksonville, who's arguably the worst team in the league.
They are at home.
So I'm fine
They
with
are
that.
at home. So I'll get that's probably the safest play for sure.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I like the
If you're looking for upside, maybe you go with a Cutler or Sanchez.
But Cutler, that game has rig job written all over it. New Orleans getting in that fight, getting blown out at home. Sean Payton saying like his team's an embarrassment. I'm not sure if you say that. That's like pulling a Brent in our hockey league, but that was bold. But
And he's going up against Drew Brees for Down with the Cause, a.k.a. We Are the Cause, according to Ben. And that's Robbie's new thing. He loves saying, he sent me a picture of the calendar. He has on his calendar, We Are the Cause. It's circled. He's ready for this game.
I saw that.
But then you have Drew Brees going against Chicago. Chicago has been terrible.
That's Drew Brees. Bold prediction of the week, Drew Brees, 30 points.
I don't think that's bold. I think he probably gets 30, especially coming off a down week.
There it is. Yeah.
I
He had
mean-
30 against the Steelers. I'll even go enough and I'll say he gets 35 points this week.
Yeah,
There's my bold prediction.
Yeah, I mean, and we're both taking Drew Brees at the quarterback position. This was a guy that the Cause went out, acquired late in the season to kind of shore up his position at QB. Fortunately, he got kind of this bad performance out of the way during the Cause's bye week. That's exactly how you draw
I was
it
going to
up.
say, if I'm the Cause, I'm like, hey, no injuries and people kind of played shitty.
Okay, so now we get into the running backs, and this is a slugfest. Both of these lineups are loaded. I'm looking at them top to bottom. Loaded. This is going to be a heck of a game.
Fucking loaded.
So, Hit on 16 has Marshawn Lynch and C.J. Anderson. If you would have saw those names at the beginning of the year,
Yeah.
you would have said, nothing great.
Hey, but all I have to say is look at that.
Yeah, there's C.J. Anderson
Drafted him in the 13th.
You did,
Dropped him.
unfortunately.
Anderson
So,
in the 13th.
You got Lynch and Anderson, and you're going up against Jamal Charles and DeMarco Murray for the Cause. I mean, you're taking Charles and Murray? I am.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
The Broncos have to win this game. So I'll give you the rationale on this. Broncos have to win this game, and Seattle just fucking hates San Francisco, and they're at home. They're just going to pound and pound. It's gonna be one of those like 30-minute porns where it's like non-stop. It's like you're almost like you feel for the girl. You're like, let's end this already. This is just gonna be Marshawn Lynch with a chubby just going
Okay.
boom and boom, and Pete Carroll wants to cover that spread. Ugh, it's gonna be ugly. That's gonna be ugly.
Well, now here is an interesting thing when you're looking at this matchup. You have Jamal Charles, who's questionable. He has a swollen knee. Andy Reid saying he's a bit tender today.
He actually said that.
He did say he's a bit tender today. So you wonder how much of a factor he'll be able to have on the game. That's the X factor probably of this entire matchup. If Charles can't go, that changes the entire dynamic of the cause. I'm sure he'll lace him up, get out there.
I'm sure, and the
Do
cause
what he can
has a backup plan. He'll play Jeremy Hill. So
That's true.
he has the depth
have
there.
that.
And the cause doesn't need to get Roddy Schrite in there. Although he had a nice game against the Packers. Oh, all right. So 3 touchdowns in the last 5 weeks for Schrite.
But I'm still okay.
Yeah.
So back to the running back matchup. I'm still going to take Charles and Murray. Although if Charles can't go, as we mentioned, that does change that. But that's a tough matchup. Those are going to be some big numbers put up by both teams' running backs. Jumping down to the wide receivers now, and this is another case where Hit on 16 has really, really good wide receivers, but you just can't pick against the cause. So Hit on 16 is Josh Gordon and Demaryius Thomas.
Demarius.
And Demaryius coming off that down week, which has been totally unlike him this year.
Well, they both had bad weeks.
Yeah, we did mention that. So look out for both of those guys. But when you're going up against Antonio Brown and Jordy Nelson, what are you going to do?
You can't do anything. The thing is, too, Josh Gordon, he had a down week last week. Are they starting Manziel?
Yes.
Dumbest decision in the history. That's just Cleveland. That's Cleveland in a nutshell.
Well, I don't blame them for doing it. I mean, why not get a little excitement in the season? Nobody wants to see that stiff Hoyer anymore.
Yeah, but you still have a chance to make the playoffs.
Yeah,
that's so Browns. That's so fucking Cleveland.
But they're like 7-6 now. They're not making the playoffs.
But the Steelers lose this week and the Ravens lose this week. I mean,
yeah, but they're playing Cincinnati. They're not going to beat Cincinnati.
Who do the Steelers have? The Steelers are going to Atlanta. The Steelers came off this road blowout. Atlanta came off a loss on the road. Heyo, the Steelers secondary sucks. Atlanta's wide receiver core, awesome.
Yeah, but you have the Ravens going against Jacksonville. I don't think Cleveland, even on their best day, is going to be able to beat Cincinnati. I don't know.
At home, I think they do. There's another bold prediction of the week, but I think they do with Hoyer. Manziel, this guy is he's a beanpole. He's barely 6 foot on a good day.
Let's give him a chance to prove himself. He did go out there and they put him in for that drive and he rushed for a touchdown.
And then he got sacked in the end zone and acted like he was dead.
He did. I thought he was dead.
If I'm the coach, I have him by the fucking face mask and I am ripping his head off. That disgusting little
Okay. All right. So we know how you feel about that.
That's a stupid move.
I don't know. It'll get me to watch the game this week. So.
But the thing is, now that hurts Josh Gordon's value. Yes, it does. Yes, it freaking does. This guy, when you go to the combine and your hands are so small that they're commenting on how small your hands are because you can't grip a football properly, you can never be an accurate quarterback. That's all they ever talk about with Aaron Rodgers is his hands are so big. He pumps the footballs up. His spiral's so tight. That's why he's so accurate. Manziel, he has to cup the ball to throw it.
Yeah, I mean,
I feel badly for Robbie because he held on to Josh Gordon all year and he got a 2 good games out of him, and then Hoyer goes down.
All I'm saying is
Brown and Nelson just destroy the other two anyway. So,
well, Demaryius Thomas is in the category of Brown and Nelson. I think those could be the top 3 wide receivers in the NFL. Josh Gordon, though, you're all high on Hoyer, but Gordon had 1.1 last week with Hoyer, so you can't get any worse.
Well, they were saying he was he quit. They were saying Gordon was being an ass.
Well, that doesn't surprise me.
They're questioning his conditioning or something. I'm wondering.
Well, he didn't.
He was tied for the team in targets.
Well, that's on Gordon, or it's on Hoyer on him not being accurate,
or on him dropping or not catching the ball. Although they were asking about his conditioning, which is weird for me. But be conditioned. Stop selling cars.
So all right. So we're gonna take Brown and Nelson there. So now you jump to the tight ends, and I think this is the this is the position where Hit on 16 can make up some ground. Hit on 16 is putting out Jimmy Graham. We know he's coming off a bad week. He's actually, I guess he didn't play the week before. Oh no, he just got no receptions the week before, so he's been quiet the last 2 weeks. I think it's train of thought. It's probably hard to hold Jimmy Graham off the scoreboard for 3 weeks in a row, but maybe he's lacking a little bit of confidence right now. Kelsey's actually coming off a 7-reception, 110-yard game, which is incredible. But I think if Hit on 16 is going to make up some ground, it's going to be at the tight end position. Jimmy Graham needs to have a big week at Chicago for Hit on 16 to kind of keep this game competitive, I think.
Yeah, I think this is almost, like you said, the X factor. He needs to produce or this one's over.
Yeah.
And that game's actually Monday night. Ooh, this could come down to Monday night.
I mean, it's going to come down to Monday night. There's going to be a lot of...
Well, this says, because Drew Brees' points, Graham, if you're Drew Brees, you're hoping he throws to everybody but Jimmy Graham.
I mean, that's going to be a fun one
It'll be interesting. Yeah, this one will be closer than the experts think, only because it comes down to a quarterback throwing to the other team's star tight end.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I don't think you play Anquan Boldin this week.
Yeah, he's going up against Seattle.
The problem is everything on his bench is also... Although maybe... Is Reggie Bush? Didn't he have a good week last week?
I did see him getting a few carries, but he has not been getting any
touchdown.
He hasn't had a touchdown all year. How about
that? I didn't even know that he was out for a couple games. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, he had one touchdown earlier in the year. That's a guy last year that carried my team in my flex. He scored touchdowns left and right.
I could have swore he got in the end zone this past week. I mean, obviously he didn't, but oh well.
No, Drake Bell, who is actually in Down with the Causes flex.
Jokey Bell.
This guy is good. I think he got in the end zone a couple times last week. He ran one in and he received one.
Well, did you see the reception? It was like a fluke.
Yeah, it was like blocked down, and he was just like running through and just caught it and kept running. I mean, it was beautiful.
That was the thing.
Yeah, that's kind of been how his year has been going. So you got to like him in the flex there. He's going up against Anquan Boldin. If he decides he wants to keep Boldin in there, I'm going with Bell, as are you.
Yeah, I'll go with Bell.
Defenses, Hit on 16 has the Broncos going up against San Diego. The cost is the Bucs going up against Carolina. I don't really like either of those, to be honest. Robbie keeping the Panthers D against Tampa on his bench. I'd maybe start them. I think San Diego could maybe put up a little bit more points, although I'm kind of contradicting myself after my thoughts on Phillip Rivers. But that's tough there. That's a toss-up. Then you go down to the kickers, Dan Bailey at Philly, Tucker at Jacksonville, two guys that have been consistent and good for years now. That's a toss-up as well. So I'm going to be boring again, and for my fourth straight prediction, take the favorite. With the top five guys in this lineup for the cause, Brees, Charles, Murray, Brown, Nelson, I can't pick against them.
Yeah.
No. We did mention that, it's going to be on the shoulders. Can Lynch stay consistent? Can Anderson continue to stay hot? Can Thomas and Graham bounce back and have big weeks? There's a lot of playmakers on Hit on 16. Sure, he can make this a game, but you got to be out of your goddamn mind to pick against the cause right now. And I think the world wants to see, and I mean no disrespect to the Jacksons and to Hit on 16, but I think the world wants to see Down with the Cause versus Team Cologne, because that would be an absolute slugfest.
It would. That would be that, and that would be great. Yeah, because I'd say Down with the Cause has the strongest lineup, but Cologne also has the propensity to go bananas as well.
Oh, absolutely.
So, those are the two best teams in the league, and I think attrition will play out, and I think you'll have Cologne versus Cause, C v C.
Yeah, that would be interesting. So to wrap it up here, I would like to jump in and I haven't even told you this yet.
Oh, this story. Yeah.
The story. So, if you don't mind, I'm going to flip this on here because this will help.
What do you mean it'll help?
It just helps.
I'm bored. I'm looking at Twitter.
Yeah, but it's hard for me to keep my concentration as you're scrolling up and down, and then I want to read what you're looking at. So, but you're going to want to hear this story because for me, this was a low point. So on Sunday morning, I went over to Sports Clips to get the haircut.
I hate that place.
I think they did a nice job. Tell me on my face they did a bad job.
I hate that you go there. It's kind of...
Get the fuck out of here.
I just hate that you go there. Like, go to a fucking real place.
I mean, I'm not a homo. I don't need to, somebody to fucking, be perfect with my hair.
It's not homoerotic. It's just like...
I think it is a little bit. If you're, going to, a little beauty
shopping
salon.
at Diesel or... Shopping in for $200 jeans is homo. This is perfect. Looking nice to go to work is not homoerotic.
Well, I mean, I get a very basic haircut.
They touch your neck though. That's weird. Mine. See now,
what do you mean touch my neck?
You say mine's gay. Yours, they do they put a. I remember a story once of hearing that Ben was laying back with a towel over his eyeballs.
That is the MVP treatment. You get a hot steam towel. You get a little massage. That is a little too much for me, I have to admit.
You don't get that one, do you?
No.
Oh, okay.
You do get a free one for your birthday, which I do take them up on that. But it is like uncomfortable because, you know, I mean, you have this chick, and all chicks work there. And
they give you the handshake is
They upon your entrance you get a nice hearty handshake. Then you go back and they kind of recline you back, so you're in a compromised position. And they're putting a hot steam towel on you, and you're getting a massage, and they're washing your hair, and it is a little bit weird. I'll give you that. That is a little homo.
like some of these guys, like middle-aged men, popping wood.
Yeah,
you know, like,
I told you. I think Ben might have been getting a handy back there once. We can't.
I remember you just said like you look back, this like he was like sprawled out with this towel over his
And
face.
after I specifically told him, do not get the MVP. We got to be quick today, and I don't want to spend $300 for you to get pampered. And of course, his legs are kicked up in the back, you know.
It's Pampered City.
But back to the story. So I'm getting my hair cut by actually a pretty attractive young lady there on Sunday.
Did she have all her teeth?
She did.
Good.
And you know, as they have it there, ESPN's always on, so they had a little NFL countdown on.
Oh, you went Sunday morning. Okay, yeah.
Right, so I'm watching that, and she was kind of like, are you watching the game today? Referring to the Steelers.
Okay.
And I was like, yeah, I'll watch the game, but I actually watch all the games. And I didn't really, obviously I'm out of fantasy.
Right.
I watch the games for reasons that all you know. But I didn't want to say that to her.
For the love of the
How do
game.
you say that?
For the love of the game.
Yeah. So how do you say that? So I just said, oh yeah, I watch all the games. I'm really into fantasy football, and I kind of like to see what's going on in all the games. Then she proceeded to ask me, oh, that's fun. Who's your quarterback? So here comes lie number one. I didn't want to say Phillip Rivers.
He had an issue admitting it.
Yeah, well, one, I was like, she's not going to know who Phillip Rivers is, She probably won't know who he is. But everybody knows who Tom Brady is, who was my previous quarterback, and that Brady was actually on the screen at the time. And I was like, Tom Brady, and she was kind of like, oh. And she's like, how's your team doing? And I'm like, the first thought in my head was like, she probably doesn't know, but she might know, so I'm not going to just like act like we're in the regular season here. Like maybe she knows it's playoff time for fantasy. So I didn't have it in me to say, oh, we're terrible, I'm out of the playoffs, because then she would be like, why are you watching? And then why do you care to watch the games?
Right, so you would have foiled yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm in this thing now. I got to stick with it. And I said it was a low point in my life, so I'm like, oh yeah, we're in the playoffs. I could not get myself to say that we weren't in the playoffs.
We are the cause.
So
we are in the playoffs.
Yeah, so I'm sitting there saying I got Tom Brady as my quarterback and I'm in the playoffs just because I can't lie to this hairstylist at Sports Clips, and I'm going on and on and on with this extravagant lie. And I told you, all I could think about the whole time was I can't wait to tell the story on the podcast, because I'm sitting there just lying. I mean, could you get any lower than lying about your current status in a fantasy football league? You can't.
To the point where you're like, to the point where you have to say, I can't actually tell my regular quarterback because I'm embarrassed, so I'm going to fire out my own quarterback that I traded.
It was a dark moment for me. It was not good. So that's where I'm at.
Damn it. I was hoping she was going to say, like, well, I made the playoffs too. And then you would have really been just like, stop cutting my hair. Just let me go.
Let me get the hell out.
Like, literally, you're like, she's only like to here, and you're just like, just be done.
So the conversation kind of awkwardly faded out because I didn't really want to elaborate any further on this fantasy football team of mine that I had just made up.
Already it's not reality, and then you turned it into a new type of fantasy.
Yeah, so I mean, really, it's amazing the difference a year makes. A year ago, I'm gearing up for a championship, and now here I am a year later lying about the status of my fantasy team at a hair salon. So that's good.
What was your, just to do a quick reminisce, what was the running, you had a player last year that we were watching. It was a matchup. You had to score. Crabtree was against you, I think.
Yeah, on the final night of the championship, I had somebody. No, I had Crabtree, and my opponent had Vernon Davis, and I had a little bit of a lead, but Davis was projected more, so we were sweating it out. It was a Monday night game.
Who did you play? Do you remember?
Danner Schratz, I believe.
Yes, and he had an interesting team name. I forget what it was.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
It was just I remember, like, every time you'd see it, it made no sense.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it was.
But I do remember that, and I remember, like, Crabtree getting a catch, and we were like, okay, that should be it. You should be good, and yeah, so